Hello, my name is Alyssa Nichol, and I am making a video to get some feedback for my main stage talk at ng-conf 2017. The title of my talk is Giving Bootstrap the Boot. I'm not going to just do a dry run. There are probably going to be a lot of interruptions with mental notes or questions at different points. Because I've done so many speaking engagements, I'm not so much concerned about having it exactly memorized or anything like that. I'm really good with improv. Also, the slides that you'll see are still very much in beta, and the styles will probably change drastically. The code sample, syntax highlighting isn't the same. As you can see, I haven't come up with an exact consistent color scheme. All these things I will finalize, but I really need feedback on the content, and mainly is it good content? Am I following all of the rules? As far as I know, with this year especially, they're being super conscious about not being negative, and that's one of the concerns I want to talk about, because the entire title of my talk, right, Giving Bootstrap the Boot, as witty as it is negative, and I don't want to change it, but I do want to talk about how I could possibly approach the subject of convincing people that Bootstrap isn't the optimal thing you want to use, while at the same time not being negative about it, because it is a negative talk, right? If we get real honest, there is no positive way to say stop using that. So it's kind of a conundrum. Not really sure what to do with it. I'm just going to do my absolute best, and hopefully that people won't throw things at me while I'm on stage. So giving Bootstrap the boot. Ho-ha! Yeah, so, and I haven't, again, decided on intro slide of my quick little, this is a 5-minute talk. So I don't know. I'm really not going to make a big blurb about myself, but I don't know what kind of intro screen I'll be doing. Currently, the assets are all stolen offline. I am trying a new thing with my other talk where I draw everything myself. This is an example of me drawing my dog. I know, gorgeous. So where I drew myself, and my other talk, which you may or may not have access to, the slides, is all hand sketched, or will be all 100% hand sketched. And it's really, really cute. And I really love the style, even though I'm not an artiste. So I was contemplating replacing any of these small assets with little hand-drawn ones as well. Still up in the air, would love feedback on that, but I digress. So giving Bootstrap the boot. There are 3 main things that you can see over here in the points. The first off, we're going to start off with the why. So why can't I just use Bootstrap and ship it? Why not Bootstrap? Okay. So I was either thinking about throwing out all of the slides and having a video rolling in the background behind me the whole time, or I talked to Joe Eames a little bit, and he thought, we might be able to do 1 minute of video. And the video is essentially me styling with raw styles and not using Bootstrap to style. And I was hoping it'd come across as a really powerful point, because I can't teach people how to do custom styles in 5 minutes, obviously. But I thought, hey, a really cool way of showing them, and it could be time-lapse or it could be real time, but I was thinking behind me on screen, I could have a video of just me going at it, starting from custom, and it'll be me swapping back and forth between the code and checking the browser to see the updated status. And I was thinking I could have that behind me, and at this point, while the video starts playing, I could say, so behind me, you see, I have a blank style, a blank template with, we'll say it's a form, whatever I ended up designing on, and I'll just be styling that, this whole time, and then I'll jump right into the points. So why wouldn't we want to use Bootstrap? And the power of this is that at the very end of the talk, I could say, I could point back to the video that's hopefully wrapping up by now, 5 minutes, and say, and this is what you can do with only 5 minutes of your time. If it's time-lapsed, obviously, I can speed up 3 times and it's 15 minutes. So I could be, and this is what you can do with just 15 minutes of styling without Bootstrap. And I'm hoping that it's a really powerful thing of I'm not teaching you line by line how to do something, but I am showing you that it is possible and that it's not as time-consuming or as scary as people think. So I really have to decide pretty much now if I want the video to be the entire time behind me, or if I want it to just be a 1-minute thing and I'm kind of narrating it during that 1 minute of the talk, and then I get back into it. A major concern that I thought of, that Joe also thought of, was that it could be too distracting to have something behind me going that I'm not necessarily referencing to. I totally get that, but I do think it would be really cool if, I can do something where the font is too small to read easily, or it's even dimmed a little bit, so it's not super bright and super pay attention to me, but it's still they can still see that I'm I'm coding or styling behind them the whole time. But But I don't know, maybe that's too distracting. So yes, if I do the video, this is when I would introduce it. And why wouldn't I want to use Bootstrap? So I have been a full-time developer for a year now, and I work as my day job, and I have a ton of side projects. So through all of these, there's been a common theme and a common pain point of Bootstrap. And if you haven't actually experienced the pain of Bootstrap, I can't give that to you. I can't fully make you understand, but I'm going to do my best to paint a picture of the pains of Bootstrap. Was thinking about asking how many in the audience have either used Bootstrap or experienced this pain point, but any time in the past that I've actually asked the audience questions, I don't know if it's just me or the audience or both, but like I tend to not get a lot of like hand raising responses. So I probably should study up on like how to do that better, and it's also such a big crowd. I don't know. Anyways, so I'm going to jump into some issues that I have with Bootstrap. Again, I would just be verbalizing this if we did go for the video is playing behind me the whole time, which I'm completely fine with doing. I can totally take that challenge. So duplication. This is needed in this spot and in this other spot over here just to override the wonderful Bootstrap. And yes, this is a comment that is in live production code right now. Because I was frustrated and like literally to find Bootstrap examples for this talk, all I have to do is search for the words or term wonderful Bootstrap in some of my projects to find my frustrations. Generic names can often be taken by large styling libraries. So for example, I was trying to hide something and I don't know how long I spent debugging it because I was like, why is it doing this funky thing? It won't hide it like the way I'm telling it to. And eventually, of course, after inspecting it in my console, it was the Bootstrap, right? Bootstrap was overriding it with, it had its own .hide styles. So, of course, out of my frustration, I said, hide die Bootstrap. Pausing the show, going to my commentary. I know it says die Bootstrap. I know that's super negative, but again, this is literally like in production right now. And I wanted to show people it is frustrating and that this, I'm not just making these things up. I'm not just making these issues up. I can dumb down the class name though, if that's too aggressive. Super specific selectors. So I don't know if you've experienced this. This is probably my number one pain point with using something like Bootstrap or other styling libraries that are so super big and bulky and in charge that I, as you can read again, and I'll probably zoom in and you can tell this is a screenshot. I want all of my code to be like this. So if you don't like that, please let me know. I'm also thinking about making the style of the comments a white so that they stick out the most. Hopefully. Lost the goal. And then I can even do, the super fancy, I zoom in or I gray everything else out on the screen after I show the code. Because the main things that I'll be pointing out on these are the class names or the comments. And so anyways, this is just a screenshot filler for me. So the second selector is just to override the wonderful Bootstrap. So this selector right here that I could zoom in on and say there are a lot of times that because Bootstrap is so specific that you have to one-up it in specificity, and this isn't the reusable way to do CSS, right? This is very painful and very specific, and it's going to be a pain to then go and iterate on and change in the future. And so it's just kind of adding on more and more complexity and more specificity as you go throughout the lifetime of your project. Super important specific selectors. Love this one. So we're not just talking about Bootstrap necessarily in this talk. I know it's giving Bootstrap the boot. However, there are other libraries. I'm sure you all have experienced them. And this is a comment from, this is only necessary because of Lada labels. So Alyssa has a very important, no important policy. No bang important policy. And anytime that I actually have to break that policy, I make sure and leave a comment as to why I did that. Even if it's come back and debug this later because I cannot get it to work. And most of those I can end up getting to replace, but sometimes the library is just so specific that I'm unable to do it. I'm not alone, but it doesn't stop there. Sorry, I thought I was on the next slide. But it doesn't stop there, and I can play this one because I kind of did something. It's a little blurry, but I'm scrolling through, and I'm probably going to be making a face on stage like this. And then I'm going to check my watch. right? And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's taking forever, right? And we zoom in and we see that all of these important tags that we were just scrolling through is actually Bootstrap. By default, 66 important tags. They're being as specific as they possibly can by default 66 times. And so that should be a pretty powerful point. Don't know how to make it more positive because I don't know how to make it more positive. It's not a positive topic. Like to me or any of other designers or developers that I've talked to that have experienced Bootstrap, it's the same story and it's all the same complaints. So it's not a positive thing. So yeah. Funny joke, could write it out in my own style, could just ditch it entirely. I really want to be more of a funny speaker. I've found the last few years that I am really, really, really good at making people think about their life and like ponder like sad things and like really like make hard points hit home. But I'm really, really bad at making people laugh. Like, I don't know. Maybe I think my sense of humor is like super weird and special and one-offy. So that's something that I'd really like. I'm trying to challenge myself to work on. I don't know if this comic is the way to go, but that is one of my pain points as a speaker. So I found it today. Actually, this morning, one of my good friends, he's a back-end developer, but he dabbles with full stack. I'm thinking about how to quote him or even doing a video actually of asking a couple people in my life of like their pains or their experience, not even make it a negative question, but their experience with Bootstrap. So my friend this morning messaged me and he said, why do people like Bootstrap? And I said, it's easier at first. I find it's more like a straitjacket, right? So that to me says everything. And I pulled up this like Stack Overflow article that I was not going to make people read this. I was just going to like kind of flash to it and explain, hey, here's a guy who's wondering how to like make specificity work. He's using Bootstrap. He's trying to overwrite it. It's not working. And of course, the number one voted thing on there, the number one answer was, have you tried adding important to all of the lines of CSS, right? Like, and that should also be another powerful point of, at the end of the day, people get frustrated and this is their only answer. So whether I show this Stack Overflow article, whether I just show the quote from my friend this morning, or whether I actually do a like 15-second video clip of me asking a couple of people, hey, like, what are your experiences with Bootstrap? And just kind of shortening that. Not really sure, but I do want to make the point of I'm not alone. And so I feel like there are going to be a lot of developers in the audience that are just that. They're developers. They aren't necessarily on the design side. They don't really see the problem with using Bootstrap. I could be wrong. Maybe everyone is going to stand up and be like, yeah, we all hate Bootstrap. But I really want to make the point of like, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that's experiencing this pain point. Maybe it's not that important, but yes. So I'm ending with a quote from the Stack Overflow guy. Typically not the best way to do this, but I think it should work. I'm ending this section with that because I have a feeling that's going to transition well into the next section. So I'm saying, typically like it's not the best way to do this, but I think it should work. And that really sums up the story of living with Bootstrap and trying to work alongside Bootstrap. Right? Like it's not the best way to do it. It's not going to be future like scalable and thinking about everything and how you want your library to work. And it's not going to be really understandable for future team members who jump on, but it should work, right? Sure, we can import in all the things. So the second part, I'm really not convinced I like this, but so the second part is after my experiences and pain points, it's the third part. What can we do? Right? And we have two things that we can do. The option one, I'm just going to go ahead and rename it now because it doesn't make sense. What can we do? Cool. And goodbye. So option one is to completely remove Bootstrap. At this point, you can say that it says BS. One, Bootstrap's really, really long. And two, I thought it was hilarious that Bootstrap's acronym initials is BS. So I was considering, again, this was before the negativity email went out, instead of saying Bootstrap anywhere in the slides, just replacing it with BS, except for this slide, because I thought it would be funny. Like, I don't know. I thought it'd be hilarious, actually. But maybe that's a no-go. So just let me know your thoughts on that. So option one is to completely remove Bootstrap. Removing the strap from an Angular project. So I wouldn't suggest this for many of you who are out there and you have very, very large projects and they're ongoing and you're pushing to production daily. You can't just rip out Bootstrap. However, for those of you who are not in that boat with every single project, maybe you just started one, maybe you're a week into it or a month into it. I actually helped Joe Eames with the ng-conf project, and I can flash to a screenshot of that or to the link of that or whatever. And he was using Bootstrap, and he actually brought me on because he knew I was going to give this talk. And so he knew I might have some experience with actually removing Bootstrap. So as I went through ng-doc.io and removed Bootstrap, I made sure and noted down those individual points. And now the bullet points will come up on screen. So the first thing I did was npm uninstall all the things. So whether it's Bootstrap, Material, ng-prime, maybe I shouldn't mention those things. I don't know. Uninstall all of them. Next up, you're going to see if there are any remnant packages remaining. So any dependencies of dependencies that are being included, and make sure you don't just check for like what node is installing, but sometimes people might be like using link tags or like script tags, like include extra things. So make sure that all of those are removed. Then you're going to open up your browser and the fun part begins. You get to see what's broken, right? And we're going to go through each of these broken pieces one at a time, start removing any leftover classes or attributes, and just fix it. Just make it happen. And lastly, this is supposed to be a funny point, hopefully make people laugh. Link in those templates and style sheets because we aren't barbarians, right? And then we're going to go into this where it shows a Angular 2 component, which I apparently have to press play. And it scrolls through and shows you the template and the styles that are in line. And people are, at this point going, oh, it's so ugly. And then I'll be like, and this is better, right? So I'm thinking of putting like a red X or something over this at the end, and then a big like check mark or something at this of like, do this, don't do that. And then just hopefully people laugh because we're not barbarians, right? The second option, which is the one for all of you and including myself, who has large projects that are in production that you can't just rip it out. What we're going to do is we're going to completely rip out Bootstrap one component at a time. And I don't know what I'm going to do for this slide yet. I'm assuming it'll be something, either a chunk of code or a drawing actually, to kind of like demonstrate of like, because it's a really simple point, but I've been told by friends and other developers that like, it's not necessarily one that everyone would think of, that like you can do it just one at a time. You don't have to remove Bootstrap in a huge chunk. You can say, hey, what's my next feature that I'm going to build out? Okay, cool. I'm not going to use the Bootstrap like selectors or, anything that they use. I'm going to go ahead and name my own selectors. And since it's components, it's kind of all like in its own little bubble. And I feel like I can kind of talk through that without actually showing any code, and maybe even have a fun illustration or something on screen happening while I do. Lastly, there is nothing to fear and everything to gain. And this is what I want to end on, by writing your own styles from scratch. And at this point, if we were not doing slides and the video was going behind me, I would be able to point up and again say, and this is what you can do in just 5 minutes, guys, with custom styles, right? And then, mic drop or whatever. So I don't know about the video behind me. Maybe it should only be 1 minute and then I kind of narrate through it. Maybe it should be, playing the whole time. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. I'm really, really, really excited.